Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are picking our monthly webinar series back up, so it is great to have you joining us today. These webinars are hosted by the Council of the Great Lakes Region and made possible thanks to support from the Fred and Barbara Erb Family Foundation. I am Laura Schrake with the Council of the Great Lakes Region, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So shortly, we will be joined by Kristin Schultheis from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District to dive into today's webinar topic, which is preserving nature and protecting communities by building climate resilience with land preservation. For over 2 decades, the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, or MMSD, has been at the forefront of this work. Through innovative programs, MMSD is preserving vital natural lands, which is protecting floodplains, wetlands, and stream-adjacent areas that absorb stormwater, filter pollutants, and support biodiversity. These programs don't just preserve land, they actively reduce future risk and improve long-term resilience, all while supporting smart, sustainable growth. Before we dive into the topic at hand, let me first share a little bit about the region and about the Council of the Great Lakes Region. The Council is a network of nonprofit organizations in the US and Canada focused on cross-border, cross-sector collaboration with the goal of making the Great Lakes region the most sustainable region in the world. We are approaching this ambitious mandate by convening stakeholders to build dialogue, to share knowledge and best practices, launch evidence-based research, and to implement impactful projects and programs that will drive sustainable systems change. Some of the topics our programs focus on include circular economy, corporate water stewardship, sustainable land management, and cross-border institutional research. These topic areas are, and their related programs are shown on the slide. And as a convener, the Council of the Great Lakes Region invites you and all stakeholders to work with us on these important program areas. They are all interconnected and are all linked in some way to today's webinar topic, building climate resilience with land preservation. So as many of you already know, the Great Lakes region is one of the most ecologically significant and economically vital areas in North America. It's also increasingly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, especially flooding, soil degradation, and water quality challenges that are driven by frequent and more intense storms. The region is North America's economic engine. Its waterways, its stable climate, and fertile lands support industries and livelihoods for the millions that call this region home. It holds 20% of Earth's fresh surface water. It supports over 3,500 species. And these are all reasons why today's discussion is so important. So we're focusing today on how targeted land preservation can serve as a powerful tool for building climate resilience, not just for ecosystems, but for communities, infrastructure, and future development. So as we get ready to hear from our speaker, I do want to draw attention to a recent flooding event that underscores the urgency and importance of the work we'll be discussing today. Over the weekend of August 9th and 10th, 2025, Milwaukee and surrounding areas experienced record-breaking rainfall. In some places, more than 14 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. It resulted in widespread flooding, with rivers cresting at historic levels, some roads submerged, and many properties damaged. Despite the severity of this extreme storm, however, many experts believe that the impacts would have been far worse had it not been for the forward-looking work of land preservation. Efforts like those that are led by Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District and other flood mitigation and green infrastructure projects. So to talk about these efforts, we're honored to be joined today by Kristin Schultheis, Senior Project Planner at Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. Kristin brings deep experience in environmental planning and community engagement. Her work has helped guide MMSD's land preservation strategy and ensure that these programs deliver meaningful, measurable impact. Following Kristin's presentation, we will open the floor for Q&A, so please feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Zoom Q&A feature. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Kristin. So, Kristin, it's all yours. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Laura. I am going to share my screen.
Great, we can see it.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you, Laura. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you to the council for inviting me today to discuss programs I really love and am very grateful that I get to work on and to manage. And yeah, I'm Kristin Schultheis, Senior Project Planner with Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, MMSD for short. And I'll be talking about how MMSD we're working through preserving nature, protecting communities by building climate resilience with land preservation. So to provide context, it's the Great Lakes. It's why we're all here on this call. We are located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and on the shores of Lake Michigan. So zooming in closer, you should be able to see my cursor. Here we are is MMSD down in downtown Milwaukee. And to provide context of the land, we have 6 watersheds that come in through our sewer service area, which is shown by this blue dashed line. We have this large one here in beige, that is the Milwaukee River watershed. We have the blue one, which is the Menominee River. The green is the Kinnickinnic River. The brown is the Oak Creek River. We have the yellow is the Root River. That's actually the upper reaches of that river in Milwaukee County. That actually flows south and goes through Racine into Lake Michigan. And then we have the direct drainage to Lake Michigan as well. So one of the things of note is that we have 3 really large watersheds, the Milwaukee, the Menominee, and the Kinnickinnic Rivers. Their confluence is right in downtown Milwaukee, in the estuary area before it flows out into Lake Michigan. So if you can imagine, when we have a regional storm system, that is a lot of surface area for which rain to fall, enter into the river systems, and flow all at the same time into downtown Milwaukee. So that's the hydrologic context. Now the development context. Milwaukee is Wisconsin's largest metropolitan area. This entire area, the majority of Milwaukee County has been developed. And although we have some farming, some open space here in southern Milwaukee County, this area with Germantown and Mequon right on the Milwaukee County line, this is an area of a lot of suburban development. It is transitioning from rural to urban. And then this area up here in the upper reaches of the Milwaukee River watershed, that is predominantly agriculture with a very strong farming community. So with all this development, the majority of our wetlands and floodplains in Milwaukee County were developed, and our rivers as well were channelized. So if we get a regional storm system that rains across this watershed, and without any of the wetlands and the floodplains to allow room for water to flood, we have a lot of flooding damages that occur. And so this next slide shows exactly some of that. This is a great 1917 photo from right in the Menominee Valley, where we have flooding coming right up to industrial area. This 1960s photo, 1997, more upstream in Wauwatosa. Here in the corner, we have another flooding event from 2008. This is down in southern Milwaukee County. And then, of course, this huge amount of volume of river, this is going right through Wauwatosa, which is just upstream of downtown Milwaukee. And so it is consistent where we have a lot of flooding issues. So, MMSD, why are we involved in flooding? It says sewerage in our name, so why are we doing more than wastewater? Well, it's in our best interest. We have an elaborate system of sewers throughout this area, shown in the blue dashed line. So we have private landowners with their laterals. We have our municipal partners with their sewer systems, which then are connected to our interceptor sewers that then flow to two water treatment plants here in downtown Milwaukee, and then a second one down in Oak Creek. And so it's in our best interest not to have floodwater enter into our sewer system, because when it does, then it has a chance of overwhelming our sewer system, which then leads to overflows. And we do not want to have that occur. And so we are there. Therefore, that is one reason why we want to manage for flooding. Secondly, we are a regional government agency. We serve 28 municipalities, over 1.1 million customers. And so we have the ability to do projects over multiple municipal county lines. And so as we know, water doesn't follow municipal lines, it follows watersheds. And so we therefore are in that position, have that capacity to do projects as a watershed and across those lines. So how are what's our strategy? And in the late 1990s, we developed what's called the Water Course Management System Plan. And first of all, the thought is, let's solve these existing flooding issues in Milwaukee itself. As I mentioned, the developed area of Milwaukee, all of those original rivers were channelized and lined with concrete, and all of our wetlands have been, the majority of those wetlands have been filled in or removed. So what we're doing is shown here in this photo. This is the Kinnickinnic River. You can see back here, it is concrete lined. We are looking to remove all that concrete, build back a floodplain, reconnect the hydrology, and bring back some sinuosity to the river. So therefore, there's room for water to flood, to come outside its banks and flood without intercepting structures. Then the second part of the system plan was, well, let's also reduce the future risk to flooding versus just dealing with what we have and trying to retrofit, because retrofitting is incredibly expensive in comparison to reducing the future risk. So we did, one of the ways is to address that is via policy and stormwater ordinances on developments or redevelopments. And we do that with green infrastructure, where we manage water where it falls. So that is your bioswales, rain gardens, permeable pavers, underground cisterns, anything that we can do to store water and slow that hydrologic flow off of that site. And then finally, especially in areas that are undergoing development pressure, how about we preserve those undeveloped lands, those natural systems that are already doing the work? And those natural systems are wetlands, floodplains, woodlands, and hydric soils. And hydric soils are one of those that actually have no protections, no regulation. And those are the soils that are spongy because they have so much degraded vegetation. They're black. They have a lot of microorganisms, and so they have a very strong smell, which I personally like as a soil scientist. It tells me it's healthy. But that sponginess, that's the carbon. The carbon is what makes it black, and that comes from all of the degraded plant material. And that allows that it has good structure. It allows to expand and can store that water. That is what's key to this floodwater management program, are preserving those natural hydric soils. It takes Mother Nature millennia to develop them. And once they're removed, they're gone. I'm in a building full of engineers, and I have been doing green infrastructure, water course type projects for now almost 2 decades. And as hard as we might, we cannot design and build what nature creates naturally. And the thing too, what we're doing is we're following nature's lead, right? She's telling us where you need to store water because that's where you have a wetland. That's where you have a floodplain. And so we're essentially following her lead. And we're doing that through the land conservation model. And so the first program that we started was back in 2001, which we call Greenseams. Um, and again, it's floodwater management through land conservation, where we make fee simple purchases or land conservation easements. We focus on in the headwater areas. So here on this map to the left, you can see this green line. That is the Greenseams program boundary. So it goes all the way to southern Milwaukee County, and it goes all the way up into Sheboygan and Fond du Lac counties to include the entire Milwaukee River watershed. And so I think the thing to note is, this is a watershed issue. Here we are in downtown Milwaukee at the terminus of these three big watersheds. We cannot address flooding in a vacuum down here at the terminus. We have to address flooding across the entire watershed. And that's what we're able to do with Greenseams and focusing in these headwater areas is to preserve these sites, especially where we're in areas where we're undergoing a lot of development pressure. We work with private landowners on a pure voluntary basis. And we fund this through MMSD's capital funds, which is comes through property taxes and heavily supplemented with grants. So something to note with Greenseams, so that really focuses on our natural areas. And like I mentioned before, the upper reaches of the Menominee and the Milwaukee River watersheds is predominantly agriculture. So a lot of our target audience is farmers. And so they didn't want to enter into the Greenseams program because, of course, they don't want to lose farmland. So in 2016, we teamed up with USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service and a few other county land trust and agribusiness partners. We applied for a regional conservation partnership program project through the NRCS, and we received funding for easements. And so essentially what we're doing is NRCS and the MMSD come together. We purchase a farmland conservation easement, and we essentially split that cost. And it's a really great partnership because for MMSD, we're doing it to permanently protect those hydric features. But NRCS, they're doing it because they want to permanently protect active farmland in developing areas, plus also protect what they call prime and unique soils, those specific types of soil classifications. Essentially, what those are your most productive soils for farming. And southeastern Wisconsin, we have this beautiful silt loam loess, which is highly productive. And so by putting those two criteria together, we're able, between MMSD and NRCS, split the cost of the easement. And likewise, we work with private landowners, and it's purely voluntary basis. And that program area is outlined here in brown. It's pretty much everything north of the Milwaukee County line and within the Menominee and the Milwaukee River watersheds. So site selection criteria. One, has to be undeveloped private property, at least 5 acres in size, includes or otherwise adjacent to hydric land features. We want to also make sure these sites are located in proximity to other protected lands because we want to build corridors. We want them to be all connected. We work with our municipal partners to make sure that any sites of consideration meet their land use and recreational plans. The last thing we want to do is to conflict with our municipal partners, but instead build upon what they have also planned. We look at water quality and habitat plans. And then for working soils, additional criteria is that it must contain some amount of prime or unique farmland. And then on the map to the right, you can see an analysis that we have done where we're looking at parcels that meet these criteria in one way or another. And so when we do our outreach and when we're looking at sites, it's very targeted. We are not just kind of doing a blanket approach. We're very targeted at to what parcels that we are looking at. And the consultant that we have doing the day-to-day work is the Conservation Fund, and they've been phenomenal. They've been with us since the inception of the Greenseams program, and they do the day-to-day work of doing the landowner outreach. They meet with the landowners, discuss the programs, discuss options, lay the maps out, just, draw the lines of where they potentially want the purchase or the easement. They put together the real estate documents and complete the monitoring. So program outcomes. Between the two programs, we have now preserved over 8,000 acres. And about 3/4 of all of that land are considered hydric. And then what's important to us is that put all together, they have the storage capacity of 3 billion gallons. And so if you look at the map to the right, this shows where the majority of our sites are located. So you can see down here in southern Milwaukee, we have a number of sites in Franklin and Oak Creek where we still have some farmland and open space down here, but these areas are undergoing immense development pressure. We have some here in the western area. This is in Waukesha County, again, in an area. These were early on. These were probably a good almost 20, 25 years ago when there was a lot of development pressure here. And now a lot of our work has been focused north. And again, in this Germantown, Mequon area, a lot of development pressure. And then up here, you can see a lot more of these orange dots. These are farmers entering into the Working Soils program. And here are some example sites that we have preserved. So, and then here we are also 190 acre purchase as part of our Greenseams program. 125 of those acres are natural, 46 acres are farmed. We have this great the Milwaukee River coming through. You can even see the floodplain area. This is just a stellar property. And the heterogeneity, the biodiversity of plant communities and wildlife here is just phenomenal. These two farm fields are part of that purchase. We just finally pulled together all the funding needed to restore these farm fields back to native habitat. And that'll probably be done, I would say, within the next year or two. Right now, we're working with the farmers to plan that restoration. Here's an example of a working soils farmland easement, 293 acres, 65 of that is natural, over 200 acres is farmed. And this is, again, working soils where we partner with the NRCS. So here you can see this is Cedar Creek flowing through the site. Cedar Creek is a major subwatershed in the Milwaukee River. You can see it's a forested floodplain, a wooded wetland, and then you can see this is just a phenomenal wetland that's here too. And you can see all the hummocks. I mean, that is super spongy soils. That's exactly the type of stuff that we want to see preserved. Plus, we're seeing that this floodplain is being preserved as well. These farm fields then, as part of NRCS's goal in preserving farmland adjacent to our, in developing areas, those are also being preserved as well. Here's a 61-acre easement through Greenseams, and this is an example of how we partner with other entities across the region. This is Cedar Lakes Conservation Foundation is the partner. They are a land trust in Washington County, and we do this often with, especially with other land trusts, where they have a site within their program area that they would like to see preserved, or they have a landowner of interest as well. And they're pulling together the acquisition funding to purchase that land. And so often land trusts will come to us, say, we have this parcel. One, does it meet your criteria? And then if it does, what would be the value for Greensteins to buy an easement on that? And so we are able then to pool all of our funds together. And so Greensteins can come in with the easement value or some sort of value. And so we help them financially be able to purchase that site. And in return, Greensteins retains a conservation easement on it. And here now, 25 years later, we're finally able to build corridors. And I think the thing to know is like, to be really effective, we don't want a parcel here and a parcel there and random parcels. We really want to connect land. And so here we have something like Kewaskum Creek. So up here in the upper, on the north part of the photo, that is the town of Kewaskum. Here you got Kewaskum Creek coming down, and then all of this is farmland. This is phenomenal farmland and just, again, a very strong farming community. And all of these parcels that are highlighted, the orange and the light blue, those are working soils. This green here, these are Greenseams parcels. But as you can see, these blue lines, these are all tributaries to the Kewaskum Creek. And so we just keep following it and keep kind of putting all these parcels together to really preserve and protect what's going into this creek. So that's one example of a corridor. Here's another example in southern Milwaukee County in the city of Franklin, where we have 9 parcels here that we purchased. Probably it took about 10 years for us to purchase all of them. And then you can see here, this is Ryan Creek that flows through it. And then what we often do is then we actually transfer those lands to another entity. And in addition to then retaining an easement upon transfer. So here we partnered with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. To the west of North Cape Road, they have a state natural area. And so essentially what we're able to do is they took these parcels outlined in green, added them to the state natural area. So it kind of also expands it and buffers it as well. Interestingly, here, this is an old aerial photograph. There's been a lot more development that you don't see on this photo. For instance, this farm field, we tried for many years to purchase this field. You can see all these black areas. That's all hydric soils. That's all wetlands. These areas flood. They're building 140 homes on this site right now. And so, I can see that many of these homes that are slated to be built in these areas probably are going to have wet basements, or their sump pumps are going to be running consistently. But the main thing here, though, at least we're trying to make sure we maintain room for water to flow without intercepting structures. And I should say, flooding is a natural occurrence. And you get a volume of water to come through a stream. It overflows the banks, it floods, and it comes back and it goes back through the stream. The only time it becomes destructive is when we restrict it or when we develop it and there's a structure there. That's when it becomes destructive. And so this is a great example. I mean, you might not be able to see it with the development, with this older photograph, but seeing the homes that have now come here. We've got a lot more homes up here. Um, and you can see these black soils. Those are wet. Those are the hydric soils that we want to preserve. This is Mother Nature saying this is where water naturally floods. And you also have to understand, you know, these towns down here, they're built out, essentially built out. And the other thing of note is that, here we have the Clean Water Act from the 70s. Back at that time, and we put wetland regulations and floodplain regulations in. And back at that time, my guess is that people never thought that, these areas would be fully developed out. And but then again, they probably did for that reason why they put in those restrictions in the first place. But, we're now at this point where we're seeing some deregulation, and it's now at the point where it is now economically viable to start filling in wetlands and filling in hydric soils. And so this, to me, this project, this corridor is a prime example of why this program is so important. Yes, there is regulation protecting wetlands, especially in Wisconsin. We still have very strong wetland protection um, regulations here in this state, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so, again, to me, especially in towns that are essentially built out, that all that's left is their wetlands, this program is incredibly important. Here, another example of how we build partnerships. Um, this is up in Germantown in Washington County. Everything in red, MMSD has purchased through the Greenseams program. The areas in the yellow, those are easements. And so this also probably, I want to say it took about 10, 12, maybe 15 years for us to work with the landowners and purchase these lands or these acquisitions. So we have about 400 acres, 392 total acres around what's called the Germantown Swamp, which is a state natural area owned by the village of Germantown. So when you put it all together, we have about 500 acres of preserved land. This is the headwaters of the Menominee River. And as we are finding out from the public, this is a major recreational area. And one of the things that we also allow, because one of our partners is the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, they did provide acquisition funding for a number of these parcels. We allow hunting. And that is something that I hear it every year from hunters, how grateful they are for the Greenseams program, especially in southeastern Wisconsin. It's really hard to find huntable land, and we are able to provide that recreational amenity through this program. So I mentioned DNR is one of our partners. Other partners includes U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, North American Wetlands Conservation Act. They provided funding towards the restoration. And for the restoration, for instance, this parcel where I'm showing with my cursor, we restored this agricultural land back to prairie. We also reconnected the hydrology by removing the drain tiles that were there. We have done about 35 acres of tree planting, 15 acres of wetland restoration. And then, of course, our private landowners are also partners as well here. And to see, especially for this land, this parcel, it was potentially slated to have 100 homes on here. And I know the landowner was incredibly grateful. This had been in their family for generations. They were grateful to see that it was preserved. We were grateful because you can see there's all these hydric features here. This serves as a great buffer for this swamp. And this is very rare down in southeastern Wisconsin anymore to have essentially hardwood wetland swamp. So Greenseams in action. Here's a 7-inch storm that hit southern Milwaukee County back in 2022, 7 inches in less than 24 hours. I took this photo from the road. I couldn't even enter it. It was at least a couple feet deep. And so if you come over here where the arrow's pointing, this is where I was standing looking west. In the orange dash line, this is this particular parcel of 40 acres. Everything in green, those are all Greenseams properties. Everything in blue here, that is owned by Milwaukee County Parks. So that's all undeveloped public access land. And then, of course, this blue line, that's Oak Creek itself. So here I am standing way over here, and here's the creek. And there's a couple feet of floodwater that I can't even wade through. And so imagine this is at least 100 acres of just flooded land. And I recall that this road was even overtopped. I mean, can you imagine if this had been developed? We're giving water room to flow, right? And look at, it's completely developed around it. All of this area, these are all wetlands. That's all that's left here in Oak Creek. And how important this was to relieve any damages occurring in this area. Here's another example. This is an example from the storm that Laura mentioned that we received a month ago, where one of our gauges read 14.5 inches in less than 24 hours. And then another one of our gauges measured 9.5 inches in 5 hours. And so Anthony, one of our team members, got out and took a photo here. Here's the Little Menominee Creek flowing through. And it just looks like it's a ditch area, but this actually extends up into this tree planting. And same thing here. So if we follow this arrow, Anthony is standing right here at West Donjas Bay Road. And so we have two Greenseam sites, what we call Horg and Babiaz. This tree planting area was underwater. This whole hardwood woodland was underwater, something that we've never seen before. Anthony came to check out the Horg property. This is the Little Menominee Creek. This was completely flooded out. Same thing with this wetland scrape. Anthony was not able to traverse the creek in order to see what was going along here along the main stem of the Little Menominee River. But again, we're giving water room to flow. And just to the southeast that you can't see on this aerial photograph is a large subdivision that has gone in probably over the past 10 years, and they're developing right now the last farm field. And the thing to note too, this is just north of Milwaukee County. So we're storing so much water on these two sites instead of shooting it through. So it's not only protecting land and residential properties in close proximity, but it's also protecting those properties further downstream, in addition to all of our flood water infrastructure. So, I spent a lot of time talking about flooding. There are so many co-benefits to this program. One, we're looking at soil health, improving infiltration, storage, groundwater recharge. We're looking at increasing the subsurface biomass. So that is the overall, the soil health, all the microorganisms, the organic matter, the carbon that's stored in the soil. We're looking to increase that. We're preserving biodiversity and enhancing biodiversity, having multiple types of plant communities that support all different kinds of wildlife. And then the outcome of that is that we are able to improve water quality, preserve open space. We support municipalities and partners, not only with their recreational plans, but with their resiliency plans. And this is so cost effective. compared to retrofitting stormwater, floodwater systems when in an already developed area. This is cents on the dollar. It's literally like 1 cent per gallon for us to purchase lands and preserve these sites versus trying to retrofit in an already developed area. So with these sites, then we need to manage them and we need to maintain our investments. And so it is all the typical land management type work that we do. We do contract out certain larger projects. We do also do smaller projects in-house, but also consistently monitoring and adaptation. And this is funded through MMSD's operation and maintenance budget, which comes from municipal fees. So it's a fee for municipalities to be connected to our interceptor sewers and heavily supplemented by grants. The consultant on this is Pheasants Forever. They are a national non-for-profit that works towards not only upland game, bird habitat, but all habitats. And the nice thing about Pheasants Forever is not only can they focus just on the Greenseams lands that we own probably about 2,300 of the 8,000. The remainder of those are all easements, but they have staff that can then assist landowners with land management of the easement sites. For our working soil sites, the stream that is attached with a working soils easement is that they must work with the NRCS and develop a conservation plan to reduce runoff, increase infiltration, improve overall soil health. And so here are some examples in regards to like rotational grazing, planting green. Here we have a harvestable field border. So for example, this farmer used to like plant corn straight up to this wetland. Instead, NRCS worked with this particular farmer was to place a 30-foot wide harvested field border by planting perennial grass that he can then harvest and feed to his cows. And therefore you have, a permanent grass growing here. It reduces runoff entering into this wetland. And then our county partners have all got technical assistance, financial assistance type programs. One particular county, Ozaki County, has an equipment rental program. This is interseeder, but they also include no-till drills. Other counties provide stipends to help farmers change over their seeders to like a no-till drill type seeder. So this is a huge partnership to really improve and bring conservation to the farming community. And then finally, people on the land is one of our major goals. I hope, it is realized that the land needs us humans just as much as we humans need the land. I mean, we all know the health benefits of being on the land. And so what we're really looking for is that engagement. And so we have work days with MMSD staff. We have the Milwaukee Community Service Corps. We bring them out there so they can be exposed to land management type careers, and also be able to develop a resume to submit to landscaping communities. We work with college and high school students, exposing them to land management type jobs. And then also Audubon Society, they come out, peer volunteers, they just want to have access to public land. And in return, they send us inventories on a weekly basis of all the birds that they see. It's great because we need that data. And then same thing with UW-Milwaukee Electoquini Institute. That's been a new program for 2 years where they are teaching indigenous land management methods, and they use the Greenseams sites to implement them. And that's just been a super cool partnership as well. Oh, and that's all I've got for now. So a great thank you. My email is on there. The website addresses for both Greenseams as Working Soils are on there. And I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much, Kristen. So we have some questions that have started coming in, and I encourage our audience to put some questions in the Q&A. I'll try to get to as many as possible. I have a few to start with also for you, Kristen, but one question, it goes back to one of your slides, sort of mid-presentation where you showed the slide on Ryan Creek Preserve
Oh,
and
yeah.
said that you had hoped to buy that land, but it's now being developed. I'm just curious, and not just for that development, but I guess others where maybe you weren't able to purchase the land because it's being developed. Are you finding developers willing to work with you to put in green infrastructure? So even if you don't have the land in one of your programs, there's still an opportunity to work with those developers?
Yes, there are, and we definitely do that. We'll track who purchases the property, and then we'll actually follow up with them and see if there's additional partnership that we can do. So oftentimes, like with that new landowner, if they're not a developer, but a new landowner, they'll be like, yeah, actually, we would love for you to purchase or place an easement on it. We don't know what to do with all that wet area. So we don't plan on developing in that area. So that is one. We have had conversations with developers who are looking for, that juxtaposition of conservation and development because they do come together, right? And so we have had some properties where the developers have taken one portion and we've taken the other portion. So it happens. It happens. I think this particular landowner, this farmer just did not, it was so early in the program that he just did not trust what MMSD was up to at that time.
And are you able to provide, I guess, guidelines or guidance to those developers that are from doing things on their own?
Things on their own, that's where we really rely on the municipalities um, to have the stormwater ordinances in place to, so that there's no net runoff. But that's essentially where, for Greenseams, that's where our limit is.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, one of the questions I had for you was around scaling your programs.
Yeah.
Council of the Great Lakes Region is a regional organization wanting to amplify the great work that's happening and encourage successes across the region. So if you had a magic wand to scale this work across the Great Lakes region, what would you suggest and what are some of the first things to do?
One, look at your watersheds and see who are the partners that already are working together. And, or it could be around a land trust, or it could be around a municipality, a very forward thinking municipality. And then it starts with really conversations and communication. And you start the idea, and then you look at potential stakeholders or potential partners in that area. And because the thing about what's going on here between these two programs is like MMSD has a role, the land trusts have a role, the municipalities each have a role, and there's overlap, there's synergy, but it's all a little different. And we also have funders that have a role, right? And so that's how we really build this partnership. And so it really starts with those conversations and and I think that's where I see like the council coming in is being able to facilitate those conversations and then like get it off the ground and maybe get some of the initial funding, help them with establishing. And I think the main thing is getting that first acquisition. And then once you get through all the learning curve, and there is some, then you got someone who can tell their neighbor who tells their neighbor. A lot of our work is all by word of mouth, especially when it comes to the farmers. And now, like, farmers at first were very suspect of our program, and now we have a waiting list.
That's great. Yeah, it takes time to
Yeah,
build trust and those relationships.
yeah.
If there was, one or two things that you wish policymakers
Mm.
understood about land preservation and climate resilience, what would you communicate to them? Or have the Council of the Great Lakes region communicate to those
That they
policymakers?
really go hand in hand, to be honest, and that's part of smart development, and I think, kinda like I look at a native habitat, right? And the resiliency and the strength of that habitat is from its diversity of plant species or the diversity of different plant community types that responds to all the needs, right? Well, I think of that as like land use. Like, we need a diversity of land uses. We've got towns that are already built out, but they don't necessarily have the diversity of land uses. And for me to be resilient, especially looking 75 to 100 years from now, like, one of my things is, where are we getting our food from? And when I look at the climate models, I see Wisconsin having actually even better growing conditions. And our growing season is going to become longer. And so, but where are we still going to get our food from? California or Arizona? We have water here. And so I feel it's very important to have that diversity of land uses. And then coming with that is, helping the town boards. It's something that I've talked to actually various entities, is really educating the town boards. It's the boards of these rural towns, they're flipping from agricultural to suburban, and they don't really understand where climate change or resiliency and how their decisions are really important right now for not only the character of their town, but the the resiliency of their town when we face climate change. And I think there really needs to be a strong educational component to our town boards to be prepared for that.
That's great advice. Uh, yeah, thank you. Um, okay, I'm gonna move over to a few questions that came in while you were presenting. And one is complementing the successful preservation model. They're asking, let's see, they say, I can see how purchases are based on parcel deed of records. Do you have a study that shows recommendations for minimum riparian buffers and the positive impacts of wider buffers?
Uh, yeah, we don't really use that. I'm trying to think. I know DNR, I think 30 feet is the optimal buffer. To be honest, I would like to see it wider. I think we see even more benefits with at least 50, 75. But I think regulatory wise, we're at 30 feet. I know with some of our farmers, when like I showed up in Kewaskum, some of those tributaries, we have, we've now are working with farmers that have land on both sides of those tributaries, and they're farming like right up to the stream. And we are pushing them to, like, can we go 50 feet? And I understand you make money here, but can we go 50 feet? Or the fact that actually you're not making money here because it keeps flooding out, but you keep trying to plow it and produce it. Why don't you put it into a pollinator habitat or into a harvestable field border where it can withstand that flooding regime? You're not losing your corn or soybean or wheat crop, but it's in a perennial grass, and that can withstand it. So that is a lot of the stuff that our NRCS partners are working on with farmers to address that buffer issue.
Mhm. And so those are just conversations happening to get sort of the buffer width that's everybody can agree on
Right.
based on each
Right.
project.
Yep. Yep.
A follow-up question from that person was regarding the deeds. If you've curious, they're curious if you've had any success with land swaps that breaks from the traditional rectangular deed of records.
Yeah, we have not done that. We have not done land swaps. So yeah, I haven't had that experience to be able to reflect upon.
Okay. And then we also have a question around the Germantown wetlands, them
Yeah.
appearing to be very close to the Milwaukee multi-county landfill. And
Oh.
curiosity if there's any danger of runoff from the landfill contaminating the wetland area.
Yeah, that's true. No, that those are in particular are downstream of that of the Germantown corridor that it showed. We do have some wetlands in close proximity to there, but that runoff, we have not had issues with that with runoff from that landfill. But that is a very good consideration.
Mhm. Great. And then I'm curious also just in terms of the tools that you use to identify sort of priority areas for land preservation, and sort of looking outward as you are looking to grow the number of parcels and land that are involved in these programs. What are those tools that you are using, and do you see that changing as technology and AI is part of our everyday world?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. You know, the tools that we use are all really locally derived. So MMSD, we have a very expansive water quality monitoring program. We team up with USGS. Our regional planning commission also does a lot of not only flood modeling, but also natural areas inventorying and recommendations. And we all share our shape files, our GIS shape files, and that's really the basis of how those are the real tools that we use. And that is something that, we started that water quality monitoring fortunately 25 years ago. And so we have 25 years trends of what is the quality of water at certain areas. What we are doing right now is moving up the watershed to get more water quality up there to really better understand our sources of like phosphorus. Phosphorus is regulated by our DNR through the code NR 151. And we have our natural areas, we have farmland areas, and so trying to understand where that phosphorus is coming from. And so those are the real tools that we're using to determine that, looking at where our hydric maps, our wetland maps, our floodplain maps, really locally derived data.
Hmm. Okay, that's really interesting. And it's great to see the level of engagement and collaboration that's behind all of these also.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
the successes, yeah. Well, okay, thank you so much, Kristen. I know that we are running out of time for questions, but thank you again for your presentation and for sharing these programs and projects with us. Looking forward to continuing to stay up to date with what you're doing. Thank you to our audience for joining us and for submitting those great questions. The Council of the Great Lakes Region, as I mentioned before, we're picking our monthly webinar series back up. So we do have webinars planned each month until the end of the year. October and November are going to see us focusing on circular economy, particularly around extended producer responsibility. So keep an eye out for the registration links for those. Also, we will be sharing Kristen's presentation today, as well as the link to the recording that will go out next week. So keep an eye out for it in your email inbox, and also through socials. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, and hope to see you at one of the webinars next month. Bye. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.